Good evening and welcome to Ridgecrest Talk. This is the Thursday night version of it. I'm Al Huey along with my partner Robert Eierman, and our guests tonight are Don and Judy Decker. We want to welcome you to Ridgecrest Talk, Don and Judy. Thank you for being with us.
We very much appreciate you coming in.
Thank you.
Now, the Deckers, if you've been in the community for any length of time, both of them have been pretty well plugged in to the water issue here in our valley. So we're going to talk to them tonight, but in the coming weeks I want to let you know we're going to thoroughly talk about this subject, and in particular the county's environmental impact report, where they're talking about rezoning properties.
The land management.
The land management
situation.
So the proposal.
Yes.
But tonight we want to start out talking to you, giving us a little bit of your background. I know you, Judy, was on the water board for a while. So tell us a little bit about your background, and then let's talk about water in the valley.
Okay, I'm Judy Decker. I've been involved with water since the early 1970s. I've attended water district and other public agency meetings for over 40 years. In 1986, I was elected to the water board and served as a director off and on for 17 years. I still continue to be vitally interested in the water situation in this valley. I want to get the word out to the public that we have a water problem. We have a delicate situation with our water. Our supply is dropping, and we have no viable plans for dealing with it at this time.
Other than conservation.
Other than conservation.
And conservation is not going to fix it.
I am currently a director on the Eastern Kern County Resource Conservation District Board. I continue exploring water there. As a matter of fact, I'm following and have attended virtually all of the meetings on the proposed EIR, Environmental Impact Report, of the county's land use plan, and I have attended 3 web broadcasts, which anyone can attend, at the Water District from the state and the state's new Groundwater Sustainability Act.
And you, Don?
I'm Don Decker. We have been in the valley since 1969 as residents, and I was asked in the early 70s to participate in a reevaluation of Dr. Pierre Saint-Amand and Dr. Carl Austin's suggestions about our water situation. And I did write an analysis. I did some field work and did a fair amount of original work, and discovered that in my observations that our recharge was even less than people had been talking about, and that has been further confirmed in more recent times by studies by a Navy contractor.
And your background as far as education, you're a...
let me go to that. I am professionally Dr. Decker. My degree is in physics. When I was a master's level student, I spent about 3 years with the Department of Agriculture in Riverside, working in soil physics and soil mechanics, and my hydrology background basically comes from there. In the late 80s, early 90s, there was a project that was joint between the major water pumpers and the Bureau of Reclamation, and I served as a volunteer representative, a technical representative for the Water District, and Gail Moulton, who worked for North American Chemical at the time, and I and Dennis Watt, who worked for the Bureau of Reclamation, were responsible for the majority of the work. And the Bureau of Reclamation report you can find online, and a little later I'll tell you where the web pages are to find it. It is still a very valuable reference. So
So
there is some
you
background.
guys have some background in this subject. Last year, our state legislature passed the Groundwater Sustainability Act. I'm sure you're more than familiar with that. Are you happy with that? Do you think there could have been a better document, or what?
Well, I guess I'll answer that question for now. I think the state has good intentions. I think the document, what they have proposed thus far, is quite good. What they've proposed is that they have already, the State Department of Water Resources has already identified all the groundwater basins in the state. And they have identified them by their ability to extract water in a sustainable manner from each groundwater basin. Our basin is considered a medium basin as far as its priority for overdraft and the impact. And what they have said is that in their Groundwater Sustainability Act is that basins that are in medium and high priority will form a groundwater sustainability agency by January of 2017. So that's us.
Right.
Okay.
And
If you like, I can go on. If you
well,
don't like,
I just wanted
won't.
you to hit on in particular. Conservation is good. I want to clarify that, and we should do that. That includes, not wasting water, but also capturing gray water. But we're not going to be able to conserve our way out of it, the situation here. We are
No.
going to have to do what?
The state has identified areas of concern for groundwater sustainability, and there are 4 of them that fit our area. One is a
30 seconds.
a continual drawdown of water in the water table, a degradation of water quality, a reduction of water in storage, and subsidence, which is land sinking. We have all 4 of those.
Okay. Well, when we come back after the break, the big question is, when are we going to run out of water? And our guests seem to believe they have a good idea when that might happen. So don't go away. Come back and join us.
And welcome back to the Thursday evening edition of Ridgecrest Talk. I'm Robert Ironman, along with my partner Al Huey, and we're talking this evening with the Deckers, John, Don, and Judy, and we're talking about water, both of which they're very knowledgeable of. And when we left you, they were going to share with us what their projection is and what they believe evidence shows as to when we will run out of water.
Well, the question of when one's going to run out of water is really an economic question. You can always extract water from ever deeper levels, but the cost per unit of water goes up and up and up, and finally you reach a point where even the deeper, poorer, salty water is not economic to extract. And so when you talk about how much water is in storage, you talk about dewatering a certain to a certain depth, for example 100 feet of dewatering, that will produce a certain amount of water. And we actually have dewatered much of this valley already to 100 feet. If you take the published water production numbers going back into the 50s, which is where the majority of our extraction is, that's when it started. If you add the numbers up, we're up around 900,000 acre-feet of water that we have pumped and consumed in those 60-some years. And the question is, how much is actually in storage? Well, the answer is actually right there. We've dewatered about 100 feet, and we have produced about 900,000 acre-feet of water. If we pump and extract another 100 feet, it'll be roughly the same amount of water, another 900,000, which is 1.8 million acre-feet of water. And back in 1967, Kunkel and Chase, who were geologists with the USGS, published a paper, and one of the things they did was to look at the productive areas of the valley and calculated a amount of water in storage which could be extracted. And for 200 feet of dewatering, their number was, guess what, 1.8 million. And this is before all of the extraction that we have now that gave us the ability to back calculate what was, once you've extracted it, you know what you had in storage.
So in essence, if condense that, you're saying we have less than 50 years.
Yes. We've extracted roughly half of the water that's within that 200-foot extraction zone. And we would have another 50 years if we were pumping at the same rate that we were earlier. But with the additional burden of the large-scale agriculture, we are going to increase our water consumption above that water which is recharged. In other words, the water that's being pulled from storage, we're going to increase that by about a factor of 1.5. So that means that our water will last a shorter amount of time by that ratio 1.5. So 50 years divided by 1.5 is about 30.
Okay, now you said that they have 200 feet of extraction depth, but yet when we had Don Zadiba in here, he said that the district has wells and they know there's water down to 1,000 feet.
Well, that is all true, but one thing that is an absolute factor here is that the deeper water in virtually everywhere, every location in the valley, the deeper water is of poorer quality.
Okay.
And so for many areas, as a matter of fact, the deeper water is not even close to being potable. So as you draw down further, you finally reach a point where
It costs more to treat the water.
It costs water to pump the water, and it costs money to treat the water.
Sure, certainly, obviously it costs more to pump from greater depth. So what you're saying is the cost goes up, plus the water is not of good enough quality, and you have to spend a lot more money to make it drinkable.
That's exactly right. That's why I started what I said. The question of how much is left, when are we going to run out, is really an economic question. How much deeper could you afford to go? And the equipment, as you go deeper, gets to be very different than it is when you're pumping from shallower levels. Okay. And as a matter of fact, the commercial hardware really doesn't exist to produce high-capacity wells. As you get deeper, you simply have nothing left. Think about pump jacks and oil wells. They're happy with a...
Got about 2 minutes before we go to break.
The oil well people are happy with 100 gallons a minute. They'd be thrilled. But a typical production well for the water district is 1,000, 1,200 or more. So
10 times.
10 times, right.
Okay.
So the problem we've got here is partly economic and it's partly technical, and the economics of trying to deal with alternate water, saline water. We could use water around the margins of the China Lake Playa and use reverse osmosis, for example, but it would be very expensive water. at some point in time, when the spot market prices climb up higher and higher, that desal water is going to look pretty cheap. But right now, it doesn't look
Keep it on.
possible.
Okay.
Well,
Wow.
we got less than a minute before we go to break. So when we come back, we're going to talk about the county's environmental impact report on the land management.
That goes along
proposal
with
to
their land use plan.
Right, for rezoning properties in the Inyo Kern area out there. Do you have property out there by any chance?
Actually, we have property that's about halfway to Inyo Kern.
So did you get a white notice or a blue?
Ooh, they should.
Well, you get a blue notice. A lot of people are confused because everybody also got a white notice, which
Okay.
is just a notice of preparation. And they thought that was both a white and a blue. It was a little bit strange.
We're going to have to stop it there because we have to go to our break. So after this information from our sponsors, please come back. And welcome back to our final segment here on Ridgecrest Talk Thursday evening edition. We will continue our discussion with Don and Judy Decker concerning water. And you want to have the question
Yeah,
ready?
I'd like for them to address the recent environmental impact report where the county is wanting to rezone properties in the Inyo Kern area. Some of the aspects of this proposal are just ridiculous. I mean, they're talking about, I was talking to you earlier, Don, about it, the one number they put out there, that the valley, the Inyo Kern area had the potential to grow to 129,000 people approximately. And that's assuming that you had 2.79 people living on these 2.5 acre parcels. But they want to cut it to where the max potential that could exist out there would be 9,000. That's 120,000 people cut right off the top. Now, I don't know, and most of us can't imagine 129,000 people moving in out there anytime soon. But I just think that's an overreaction by the county to go at this in such a hard and very limited in what the property owners' options are. Like I said, this one farmer we talked to, he believed that he wouldn't be able to get any farm loans. His property value would be cut down drastically, and he probably wouldn't even be able to sell the property. So, and what do you think, let's just cut to the chase, what do you think of the report in general?
Are you looking at me?
Either one of you.
Well, I think, first of all, you need a little history. And the history is about 3 years ago, this started as a specific plan for the Inyo Kern area. The population that came to those meetings insisted that we had a severe water problem. That morphed into a water sustainability plan where the county hired Todd Engineering to do a research report on all existing water data, and you can avail
I've seen
yourself of that report. That has since morphed into this land use plan.
Mm-hmm.
The land use plan does not address the critical issue of water. It skirts around it. It does not address it. I think it's, for myself, it's poorly written. It needs to be re-examined. As someone said to me just today, it's cut and paste. I have heard of people whose APN numbers don't have the right number of acreages associated with the APN number. There's all kinds of errors in it. We will have an opportunity to discuss this, all of us, on February 17th at 6 o'clock at City Hall.
Is it 17th? Okay.
The 17th. Yeah.
The 17th.
Next Tuesday.
Next Tuesday. This goes.
And we are going to have here on our edition of Ridgecrest Talk, and I think it's, I told you, the 18th or 19th, Lorelei Oviatt, the planning director.
I'm sure she will be there on the 17th.
Yes.
Right.
There is another opportunity, I believe it is March 4th, if that's the first Saturday in March, from 9 to 12 at City Hall.
Well, I've heard from property owners, one that I know that has a small farm out there. They raise animals mostly, and they're going to be limited, they said, to 2 cows.
That's an issue.
Now, that's a reduction of water use, not giving water to all those animals. So,
Well, in defense of the county, the change in zone does not mean an immediate change in the use of the property. It means a non-conforming use, and there are...
and they'll be penalized.
No, not immediately. The activity can continue unless the county were to actually put a sunset law in place. It will continue on into the future. What they can't do is expand the existing activity. One thing that people need to do is to look at the county's zoning regulations and see exactly what their proposed new zoning will take them. Certainly the point you just made, that some people are going to run afoul of a rezone from A1 to some estate zone, and their large animal population will be in non-compliance, and as long as they're neighbors and they are okay with what they're doing, they probably are going to still be okay.
Okay. We haven't gotten much positive feedback from the people we've talked to out there.
Well, another way to put this is that there is enough in this document that virtually anybody who reads it can find something to hate. It's polarizing to the max. And as a matter of fact, that's one of the main criticisms I think that can be brought to it, and that is it is counterproductive to the state sustainability activity, which, if that is going to be successful, it requires that the stakeholders here be in a position, be in a mood to be collaborative and cooperative. And having everybody wound up and agitated over what they can and cannot do to their property in this rather abrupt and arbitrary manner is exactly what you don't need.
Right.
What I was going to say earlier about
Got about
this
a minute, okay?
Sustainability Act is how it will work is a given groundwater basin, existing agencies who can serve water will become the groundwater agency if they serve the entire basin. We don't have any agency like that here. So the default by the state is the county. The county will create a groundwater agency board. It will not be elected by the people. However, they will have a public task force to advise them. Then they will create the plan. So what Don said about this current document and hating everybody doesn't fit in real well with that.
Wow.
Well, unfortunately, we've run out of time. We need to have you guys back again if you'll join us.
Yes, we would.
And just to give you listeners a heads up out there, in the coming weeks, we've talked to Senator
Gene Fuller,
Assemblywoman Shannon Grove,
Lorelei, Mick
Gleason,
and we will see
so
you
tune
next
in.
week.
We'll be back.
Thank you.